And so, hello there, and welcome to a new Night of the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, whenever I want, for about half an hour to an hour, whenever I want now. And in today's podcast, I'm catching up on reviewing a couple of films which came out, a few films actually, which came out over the past couple of months, which I didn't get round to reviewing because I was in the middle of writing a sort of important piece of academic work in my dissertation. So, over the past couple of months, I didn't really watch many films at all. I mean, I went to the cinema, but I didn't really watch many films at home, apart from the ones I'm reviewing in this podcast today. And those films are, just getting up here, Tetris, which is the Apple TV Plus movie, as well as Operation Fortune, Ruse, Guerre. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation of the film title, but I gave it a go, which is currently streaming on Prime, and Evil Dead Rise, which I think is still in some cinemas. But before I get round to reviewing those films, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, that if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers, but heck, you just don't have the time to watch the full podcast on YouTube, then you can also pause out, I can't even speed there, then you can also oh god, I'm going all over the place, then you can also check the podcast out audibly on Spotify at Night of the Movies on that platform. But if you are already listening on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check the podcast out visually on my YouTube channel at Night of the Movies on that platform as well. Likewise, wherever you are watching or listening to the podcast, please feel free to like and subscribe if you enjoy the podcast, of course, and also leave me some suggestions on topics you want me to talk about in future podcasts. I'd love to get some suggestions just for, future podcasts or even just future traditional YouTube videos that I'm going to get back into doing over the next couple months. Now I have a lot more free time. So give me some suggestions because I'd love to get some. But anyway, as I already mentioned in this podcast today, I'm reviewing Tetris. And I'm also going to be reviewing Operation Fortune, Ruse, Guerre, which I don't know if that's how I pronounce the film title, but yeah, I gave it a go, like I said before. And also Evil Dead Rise. And these were the few films, by the way, which I watched over the past couple of months, because at home, I really didn't watch many films at all. Honestly, it was kind of crazy over the past couple of months, the amount of time that I felt was lost. And like over the past week or so, since getting my dissertation in, I've been starting to watch more films again, and it felt surreal. It felt like I'm in some sort of dream, like I'm watching films again and I'm going, oh, this is what I missed film, I still went to the cinema, but I wasn't watching films at home, and it is a different experience. And sometimes, I enjoy watching a film at home a bit more because I'm not as self-conscious and I can just enjoy it. And also, if it's a rewatch as well, when you're rewatching that film that you love so much, you're really trying to go, oh, that's why I loved it so much. Oh, you film, so it's been great over the past couple of days, falling back in love with film, and I can't wait to do that more over the next couple of weeks as well. But these films I did get round to watching over the past couple of months, but I just didn't get around to reviewing because, like I said, I was really, really busy. And the first film that I watched over the past couple of months that I didn't get around to reviewing was the Apple TV Plus movie Tetris. So the plot of this film, according to Google, goes as follows. Hank Rogers, played by Egerton of Kingsman fame, of Eddie the Eagle fame, and of Rocketman fame, he discovers Tetris, this game, in 1988, and then he risks everything by travelling to the Soviet Union, where he joins forces with the game's inventor to bring Tetris to the masses. And that's essentially the plot of the film, and honestly, I really enjoyed Tetris. It was surprisingly good because it reminded me of The Social Network, where The Social Network was one of the best films which has come out of the past 20 years, by the way. The Social Network is a film about the creation of Facebook. It's a film about how Facebook came to be. And on the surface, that sounds unbelievably boring. It really does. And I was so hesitant to watch it But then when I sat down to watch it, though, about 10 minutes in, I was like, wow, this is brilliant. It's so well written and so well directed. And I feel similar way about Tetris. Like, I'm not saying Tetris is as good as, The Social Network. I think The Social Network is masterful, one of David Fincher's best movies. But what Tetris did manage to do is get me interested in a story that I had little knowledge about and that I didn't really care about, to be honest, either. Like, just making sure I was recording there, I thought I wasn't for a second. But anyway, yeah, it got me interested in a story that I didn't really care about because, I played Tetris once, quite a while ago now, and I thought it was okay, and I don't really know about the game too much, though. And I watched it with somebody as well who didn't really know what Tetris was altogether, like, they hadn't really heard of it before, and we both finished the film and went, that was really enjoyable. We had a thoroughly good time watching that movie. You know what? It was insightful and it was fascinating because it's not the story you might expect. I'm not going to go into detail on the story because there's so many aspects of the story that you're trying to get your head around whilst you're watching it, but it's also kind of mind-blowing the amount of stuff that was going on behind the scenes with this game to bring it to the masses. And yeah, the story itself was so compelling and so engaging. In fact, it was so engaging that I was building some Lego whilst I was watching this film because I thought it was going to be like some background sort of entertainment. And then about half an hour in, I found the story so compelling that I had to give up building my Lego and just went, I'm going to go sit on the sofa and fully immerse myself into the film. And that's what I did. And I had a great time with it. It was really, really good. And also, it reminded me of another great film in Ben Affleck's Argo. Like, I've only seen Argo once, a very long time ago. And I remember really liking it. To be honest, I will need to see it again. I keep meaning to, but it's just one of those films that it just slips away from me. Every time I want to rewatch it, it's either not on a streaming service and I can't find the DVD. But anyway, yeah, Argo is a great film. And Tetris, in its last half an hour, reminded me of what I think was the last half an hour of Argo. I'm not going to go into detail there, but the last half an hour of Tetris was really intense, much like the last half an hour of Argo, where it's a sort of, edge your seat sort of stuff, where you're gripping the edge of your seat, you don't know where the story's going, and I'm not going to go into detail actually, but yeah, it's a great ending, and it reminded me of Argo in a very good way. Also, the performance is great. Taron Egerton is great in this film. He's given quite an agitated performance, like he's always got somewhere to go, but you also believe in his character, and you never feel like you're watching Taron Egerton either. Whether it's because he has a moustache, I don't know, but I remember he had a moustache in Eddie the Eagle, and there was a couple moments in Eddie the Eagle, which he's great in, by the way, but there's a couple moments in Eddie the Eagle where, I was watching it going, that does look like Taron Egerton in a few parts. But I never felt like I was watching Taron Egerton in this film, which is a huge perk, because sometimes when you have a huge star like him, you do feel like you're watching the actor, not the character. You feel like you're watching an actor playing a character, but I never felt like that in this film. Also, Toby Jones in there. Toby Jones, who's literally in everything. He was in Empire of the Sun a couple months ago, and he's going to be in Indiana Jones 5 next month. So, yeah, he's literally in everything, and he's in this one as well, and he's really good in there. Yeah, there's a lot of great performances. And back onto Taron Egerton for a sec, it was really funny that he was in this film because, when the credits came up, I didn't realise that Mathew Vaughn was the producer on this film, because Mathew Vaughn, if you don't know, he directed X-Men First Class, Kick-Ass, Layer Cake, which is a really good film that I checked out a couple of weeks ago now, and also he directed, I just forgot the name on the top of my head, but now the Kingsman franchise. He directed all the Kingsman films we've had so far. And, Taron Egerton is the lead in Kingsman 1 and Kingsman 2. And also, Mathew Vaughn was producer on Eddie the Eagle and Rocketman, which Taron Egerton was the lead in both. So it's, maybe there's something going on there. And clearly, Mathew Vaughn has a good working relationship with Taron Egerton because he keeps casting him in all the lead roles. Even in films that Mathew Vaughn isn't directing, he's still casting, he's still going to be involved in the casting. He's still casting Taron Egerton in the lead role. So, yeah, there's clearly a good working relationship going on between the two. And that's really good to see because I want Kingsman 3 to happen. I'm somebody who enjoys Kingsman the Golden Circle, and I want to see a conclusion to Eggsy's story. You know, Eggsy, who Taron Egerton plays in the Kingsman franchise. I want to see a good conclusion to that story, but that's a side note there. But, you know, the fact that Mathew Vaughn and Taron Egerton are working together so gives me hope that Kingsman 3 will happen, and hopefully it'll be a satisfying end. But who knows, you know. But anyway, back onto Tetris. It's also got a great soundtrack by Malone. I think that's how I pronounce his name. Apologies if it's not. Who he did the score for the latest Mission Impossible film, Mission Impossible Fallout, which has got this really exciting and sort of fist-bumping score, which, yeah, is really, really good. Pounding score, that's what I was trying to say. It's got a really pounding score, and it's really orchestral and everything like that. And you get to this score, and it's very different. I like when, you know, composers do something different and show their range. And Lauren Balfe did a great job with that, with his score for Mission Impossible Fallout, then his score for this film. Two scores which are very different. But yeah, the score is great. I think it's made well. It's got some really good direction in there. It's not brilliant, and it might not blow you away. Well, actually, saying that though, I think the story might blow you away, but as a film, it's not going to be one of my favourite films of the year or anything like that, but it's a great movie. It's really good, and if you do have Apple TV Plus, because I know not everyone does, but if you do have Apple TV Plus and you haven't checked out this film yet, I would definitely recommend it. Worth a watch, and you know, it's interesting, it's enjoyable, and it's even exciting at times, which is something I didn't expect to say about a Tetris movie. But if you've seen the film, you know why I think it's exciting. There's a certain sequence towards the end which I was, you know, which was very suspenseful, and I was gripping the edge of my seat. And so I'm going to say that Tetris, I'm going to say it's about a 7.8 out of 10. Like I said before, worth a watch. Taron Egerton's great, a great score, and a really interesting story. And you don't have to be a fan of Tetris to want to watch this film. You don't have to know anything about Tetris to watch this movie whatsoever. I didn't really, and yet I had a great time with it. Definite recommendation if you have Apple TV Plus. And yeah, great film. Really happy I saw it. And so, like I said before, I'm going to say that Tetris, I'm going to say that it's a 7.8 out of 10 from me. Now, let's get on to my next review in Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. Again, don't know if that's how you pronounce the name of the film, but that's how I'm going to say it. So, this is a relatively new movie from Prime. I think it came out about a month ago now, actually. But anyway, yes, it came out, and it's directed by Guy Ritchie. If you don't know who Guy Ritchie is, he previously directed Snatch, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and The Gentleman. Those are the films of his which I have seen. And I stuck this movie on again when I was having a bit of a breather in the midst of writing my dissertation, and I was building some Lego. And I thought, again, much like Tetris, that it was going to be background TV. And actually, I ended up enjoying it. Now, the plot, according to IMDb, follows the story of Special Agent Orson Fortune, played by Jason Statham in this film, and his team of operatives who recruit one of Hollywood's biggest movie stars to help them on an undercover mission when the sale of a deadly new weapons technology threatens to disrupt the New World Order. And, like I said before, I enjoyed this film, although it's a bit silly, and it's not great, and it's way too long, and I'm not sure what it was trying to do either. Like, it's a fun film, but it's not a great film. And, you know, it's directed by Guy Ritchie, who previously directed The Man from U.N.C.L.E., which I actually really enjoyed. I know not everyone did, but I had a great time with The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And The Man from U.N.C.L.E., though, never got a sequel. And I don't think it ever will now. Partly because that film has kind of had its time, you know, it's been and gone. But also because one of its lead stars, Armie Hammer, has become a bit a bit controversial, to say the least, over the past couple of years. So that film will probably never get a sequel now, and I think Guy Ritchie knew that, and I think that's why he chose to make this film. But fully enough, I'm pretty sure this film was meant to come out like 2020, and now, it only just came out last month. So, yeah, it's been crazy how long this film has been delayed for. I think it was meant to be 2020 when it came out, but I might be wrong there. But yeah, it's been in the can for a very long while, and it feels like with this film that Guy Ritchie wants to make the Man from U.N.C.L.E. sequel, which he never got to make. And it feels as well like he wants to, make another spy franchise, try and do something different, because this film isn't just called Operation Fortune. It's called Operation Fortune Ruse de Guerre, which implies for me that they were wanting to make more films with Operation Fortune. I don't think they will, because this film has been met with a great critical response, and I don't think it's really done really well on Amazon Prime. Am I wrong there? But still, yeah, I don't think he's gonna have a successful spy franchise with this film. But at the same time, like I said before, I enjoyed it, and I think I enjoyed it because, like I said before, it was kind of the Man from U.N.C.L.E. sequel we never got. The Man from U.N.C.L.E. is a film, like I said before, I enjoyed, and we'll probably never get a sequel to that. And so this film felt like the sequel to that, and that's why I enjoyed it. There was moments in it which reminded me a lot of the Man from U.N.C.L.E., and also there are moments in it which are genuinely really entertaining. They're genuinely really, really good to watch. Like, Hugh Grant is in this film, and Hugh Grant, like most of the films we've done recently, is the best part of this movie. By far and away, he's the best part of the movie. Like he was in Dungeons and Dragons, a film which not only didn't work for me, but, he was the best part of that film by a long way. And also, he was best part of Paddington 2, although Paddington 2 is a wonderful film anyway, just absolute joy of a movie. And also, he was the best part of The Gentleman. And The Gentleman was also directed by Guy Ritchie. And it feels like Guy Ritchie got Hugh Grant on the set of this film and said, just do the same thing you did in The Gentleman. Honestly, doing the exact same performance. And although it didn't work for me as well as it did in The Gentleman, like the performance in The Gentleman, I just thought it was brilliant because it was so unlike anything we'd seen Hugh Grant doing before. And so because Hugh Grant had done that before I watched this movie, it didn't feel as unique and as original, but still, it was really entertaining to watch because I never felt like I was watching Hugh Grant. I really enjoyed watching that character, and also it's really funny, and he felt like he was having a good time being in this film because it's not his usual type of film, is it? Usually, the stereotypical sort of idea when you think of Hugh Grant is the rom-com, like Love Actually, Notting Hill, and so on and so on and so on. And obviously, this isn't a rom-com, and he plays quite a dodgy character, and I think he plays him really, really well. And yeah, Hugh Grant, I can't say no good things about him recently, and I can't wait to see what he does next. There's a rumour that he's an Oompa Loompa in the new Willy Wonka film coming out this Christmas, and if that's true, I'm going to be first in line to watch that film. Hugh Grant has quickly become one of my favourite actors working today, which is odd to say because he's quite old, and yeah, he's brilliant at almost everything nowadays. So, yeah, he is the best part of this film, but also Jason Statham, he's doing the thing you expect Jason Statham to do, but he seems like he's having fun doing it, and actually shows a bit more of emotional range in the film than I expected him to show, and I think he even sings at one stage. I mean, it wasn't clear if he was singing, because he had a mask over him in the scene, but I think he was singing, yeah, and also Aubrey Plaza, who, I first became acquainted with in Parks and Recreation, which is wonderful, by the way, and also he was great in the last season of The White Lotus. She was so good in that show. She seems like she's having a lot of fun in this film as well. Also, Bugzy Malone, who is an artist I'm not really familiar with, I've got to admit, it's a genre of music that he performs, which is not really for me. He's actually quite good in the film. I didn't even know it was him. Shows how much I know who Bugzy Malone is. I didn't know he was in this film, and yet he's one of the main characters, really. He's always with the lead characters in this film, and yeah, I enjoyed his performance quite a lot as well. And yeah, it feels at times like it's trying to be a Bond film / a Mission Impossible film, and that's no surprise because, like I've already said, it does feel like it's in the same family as The Man from U.N.C.L.E. And The Man from U.N.C.L.E. felt like a pseudo Bond film at times as well. In fact, a lot of people actually call The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Henry Cavill's audition for Bond, which, I don't think he ever played Bond, but, I can see why people are thinking that. Why people thought that. So I can see why those sort of comparisons are happening, because I do think it is in that same sort of family as Man from U.N.C.L.E. It is directed by the same person who directed The Man from U.N.C.L.E. Although I don't think it's as good as The Man from U.N.C.L.E. How many times can I say The Man from U.N.C.L.E. in 30 seconds? But, I don't think it's as good as that film. But it's entertaining. It's a fun Friday night, Saturday night sort of film. If you want to stick something on, not take it too seriously, have a bit of fun with something, and just get into it. It's not got a compelling story, it's not got an engaging story or anything like that, but have a good time with the film. You know what? I would recommend Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre. I would check it out. I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not great, but it's okay. And sometimes okay, it's okay. It's good enough. Sometimes that's what you want from a film. And that's what I wanted from it. I watched it at the time when I didn't want to watch anything too emotionally taxing. And this was right up my alley, Good film, but nothing special. And yeah, it is what it is. It's pretty much, you look at the post of this film, and it's like, okay, that's the film you're going to watch. It does what it says in the tin. And you know what? It's good enough. I think it's good enough for me. And I enjoyed it. And so, for that reason, I'm going to say it's a 6 out of 10. I'm going to give Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, a 6 out of 10. I think a lot of that is down to Hugh Grant. Honestly, as soon as Hugh Grant came on screen, I was like, okay, the film's working for me now, because he's doing that performance again, and I enjoyed the performance so much in The Gentleman, and even though he's doing the same performance he was doing in The Gentleman, it's still working for me now. This film isn't as good as The Gentleman, though. The Gentleman, I think, is a really well-made film, actually quite clever at times. I don't think this film is that clever. I think it thinks it's clever, but I don't actually think it's that clever. But it's a fun film. Sometimes that's what you want. Like I said before, it's a Saturday night, Friday night type of movie. It's got some really fun performances, good action as well, which is one thing I haven't really mentioned yet. It's got some really well shot action, some exotic locations. Again, it sounds like a Bond movie, and in a way, it is kind of emulating those Roger Moore Bond films, but I think it does a good job doing so, and I liked it. I thought it was good, but, just not great. But it is what it is. It's a streaming movie, and you know what? It worked for me. It worked for me, and I thought it was okay, and I would recommend it if you want a good time with something to watch tonight. You want to stick it on, have a bit of pizza or something like that, and just have a good time, not take anything too seriously, and not think about the plot too much. And yeah, you'll have a good time with this film, like what I said about 1,000,000 times in my review of Operation Fortune. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, I'm going to say that it's a 6 out of 10 from me. Now, let's get on to Evil Dead Rise. So, Evil Dead Rise, I'm pretty sure is still in some cinemas. I know Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is out now, so I don't know how many cinemas will be anymore, because Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is going to take up a lot of cinema showings, of course, but I'm pretty sure Evil Dead Rise is still in some cinemas, and it's the new film, if you haven't guessed it already, the new film in the Evil Dead franchise, which started all the way back in 1981 with The Evil Dead, which is directed by Sam Raimi and starring Bruce Campbell. And that film, I really liked. I watched it for the first time about a year ago now, had a splendid time watching it. Probably not the sort of thing you expect me to say from a film like The Evil Dead, especially if you've seen it, because it's a gory film, it's very violent, and it's very gory. I know I've already said that, but, it's very gory, but it's a sort of comical gore that you can get away with, in my opinion, with a film like this. And I had a really good time with Evil Dead. Then a couple of days later, I watched Evil Dead 2, which arguably is even better. I would argue it's even better. I would actually argue it's even better. The more I think about Evil Dead 2, the more I really, really like it. I don't quite love it, but I I think if I watch it again, I will love it because it's got so many classic moments, like Bruce Campbell with the chainsaw going groovy. It's so, so good. And they go on to the third Evil Dead film, Army of Darkness, which, although is the worst of the first three Evil Dead films, is still such a joy to watch. In fact, I can't say that about the first two Evil Dead films. I wouldn't say the first two Evil Dead films are a joy to watch, but the third one is. The third one is ridiculous. It's on the same level, it's got the same level of ridiculousness as, say, the Blues Brothers, which is so outrageous and outlandish and all this sort of stuff. And it's on the same level as that, but it works. I had a great time with Army of Darkness because it reminded me of Jason the Argonauts, and there's so many fun moments in there, even though it's very silly, very stupid, and very different than the previous two Evil Dead films. It's a great film anyway. I really, really liked it. And those are the only three Evil Dead films I've seen. Now, I know there was an Evil Dead TV show at one point. I haven't seen that. I also know there was a sort of Evil Dead... it was kind of a remake / reboot. I know that came out, I think it was about 10 years ago now, something like that. So yeah, I know there's been other Evil Dead films or TV shows, although I haven't watched any others. I've only seen the first three films, directed by Sam Raimi, who did a great job directing those films, by the way. Honestly, sometimes those films are quite visceral and feel quite real, especially the first Evil Dead, because it was shot on a shoestring budget, and you feel that, but not in a bad way whatsoever. And yeah, those first three Evil Dead films are great. And now you get Evil Dead Rise. And I went into this film really wanting to love it. I saw it later than I wanted to. I saw it much later than it actually came out. And I heard some really great things about it. So a lot of people were raving about this film. And I was hoping to have as much fun with this Evil Dead film as I did with the first Evil Dead films. And I really, really wanted to love it. I really wanted to like it. I was really, really disappointed with it. Now, basically, the plot goes as following. This is the IMDb plot synopsis once again. A twisted tale of two estranged sisters whose reunion is cut short by the rise of flesh-possessing demons, thrusting them into a primal battle for survival as they face the most nightmarish version of family imaginable. Now, that's a good plot synopsis. A plot synopsis I could never do myself. But yeah, I was disappointed by this film. And it's not to say it's bad. I don't think it's a bad horror movie. That's my problem with it. It's a proper horror movie. And I struggle with it for that reason. It reminded me, and I'm not somebody who watches horror movies a lot. I haven't seen a lot of horror movies because they're not really my type of genre. I don't really like horror movies that much. But it reminded me of one of my least favourite horror films in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed by Tobe Hooper, which I think came out in 1974. My mate showed me that once, and I hated it every single second of it. Not because it was a bad movie, but because of the feeling it was giving me when I was watching it. That's how I felt about Evil Dead Rise. I don't think it's a bad movie, but it's so gory, and it's so dark, and it's so brutal, and it's so horrific in some parts, at least for me anyway, that I couldn't take it after a while. And, the film's only about 90 minutes long. It might be a bit longer, I can't remember how long it is now actually, but it feels about 90 minutes. It's not a long film. But I think I got to about the hour mark that I can't take any more, then something else happened. I'm like, okay, you're just giving me more and more and more. And it was one of the most uncomfortable cinema experiences I've had for a very long while. And I watched Evil Dead Rise, I think the day after I handed in my dissertation. I was kind of like, oh, I'm going back to the cinema now. I haven't really been there since I saw the Super Mario Bros. Movie with Lewis. Kind of odd that I'm bringing up the Super Mario Bros. Film. Pardon me there. In my view of Evil Dead Rise. But I haven't been to cinema for a long time. Really want to just watch something which is fun, enjoyable, remind me of why I love the cinema. And it did remind me of why I love the cinema, because I was in a cinema full of people who were giving quite vocal reactions to the film, but it also reminded me of how uncomfortable a film can make you feel, and not in a good way. There are moments in the first 3 Evil Dead films, mainly the first 2 Evil Dead films really, which make you feel uncomfortable, but not nearly as much as Evil Dead Rise. Oh my god. There's gory moments in the first 3 Evil Dead films, but not nearly as gory as this film. Like, the gore in the first Evil Dead films, you can tell is not real gore. In this film, it looks like real gore. It looks like people are literally getting their eyes popped out. It looks like people are just getting spears, well, not spears, but wood, cut through their body. It looks like bodies being torn apart and really gory. See what's happening. It looks real, which I understand why a lot of horror fans may like that, but for me, it was really off-putting, and I had quite a vocal reaction to the film in my cinema, with people going, ooh, 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 like that, and a couple of funny lines were said in my cinema as well from people in the audience, where about halfway through, bear in mind, in about the first 5 minutes of the film, the title of the film comes up, Evil Dead Rise, in these big, gory, blood-covered letters. And about halfway through the film, I was sitting near some people, and one of them turned to each other and went, "Is this an Evil Dead film?" And then the other went, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is." And then the guy who asked, "Is it an Evil Dead film?" went, "To be honest, I wasn't really a fan of the other ones, but I'm enjoying this one." And then, towards the end, about 3/4 of the way through the film, and I'm not making any of this up, by the way, about 3/4 of the way through the film, there were people behind me, and one of them said, "This is a horror movie. I'm not really a fan of horror films." Like, what is this cinema? I mean, I don't know if that was exactly what they said, but it was something around those lines. And I'm just there thinking, you're watching these very gory sequences take place. Gore that I, myself, haven't really seen in a horror movie before. I dare say there's loads of horror movies which get this gory, but I just haven't seen them, And yet, you're asking, is this a horror movie? Is this an Evil Dead film? I'm thinking, of course it is. Like, what? And when they said I'm not really a fan of horror movies, I'm thinking, I'm on the same train as you right now, because, oh my god, the amount of gore was just ridiculous, and it wasn't fun to watch either. I wasn't sure if I was meant to enjoy myself watching this movie. Like, with the first Evil Dead films, more specifically the Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness, they have this goofiness with them, this campiness with them, which works. They're a bit campy, and, in the second Evil Dead film, it gets gory at times, and it gets quite dark at times, but then you've also got Bruce Campbell, that's Ash, going with it with a chainsaw, and it's just moments that I want which make me love Evil Dead 2, and, well, I don't love Evil Dead 2, but moments which, make me really admire Evil Dead 2, because it was something that I hadn't seen before. Same with Army of Darkness, it has some gruesome moments, and some, moments which fit into the horror genre quite nicely, but also it's got a lot of goofiness, Army of Darkness. But that's what makes me love those films. Well, again, not love those films, I don't know why I keep saying that, but that's what makes me really enjoy those films. That's what I meant to say there. It makes me really enjoy those films. And I didn't get that from Evil Dead Rise, because I wasn't sure I was meant to enjoy it or not. It didn't have, and spoiler here in case you haven't seen Evil Dead Rise and you're a big Evil Dead fan, but it didn't have Bruce Campbell as Ash in there anymore, and I missed that. It needed a bit of goofiness in there, because everything was taken so seriously. I was like, this is the same Evil Dead that would be made 30 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. I missed that sort of Evil Dead filmmaking. I missed that, and I was hoping to get that same sort of goofiness that I got from Evil Dead 2 and Evil Dead 3, Army of Darkness, in this film, and I didn't, and I missed that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Because, Lee Cronin, who directed this film, it wasn't Sam Raimi, although Sam Raimi is a producer still, and apparently he handpicked Lee Cronin to direct this film. So, yeah, he wasn't Sam Raimi anymore, and Lee Cronin directed this movie, and clearly he knows how to direct horror movies. And apparently he's also directing the new Alien film, which is going to be interesting. Hopefully he does well with that film, but I felt like he was just going too gory, too horrific. Honestly, there were moments where I felt like, when they're making it, one of the filmmakers might go, Lee, do you think we got enough gore in the sequence? And then Lee Cronin might go, actually no, let's just add 20 litres more of gore, because why not? Honestly, it taps into all those sort of fears, injections, eye violence, people being sawed in half, chainsaws, people being joined together, shredders, and also people drowning in gore and blood. It taps into all those fears, and that's why it gave me a really uncomfortable viewing experience, and that's why I can't say that I liked it. I didn't like this film because it didn't feel like Evil Dead for me. It didn't. And it felt too... This film had a sense of curiosity, and it felt like it was tapping into that too much, It felt like it was too furious. It felt like it was too angry, and I wanted it just to calm down a bit. I'm glad a lot of people are loving this film. I've seen a lot of people online who have really enjoyed it, and if you do, that's great. I can see why a lot of horror fans would love this film, but for me, I wanted it to be more fun. To be honest, I just wanted to actually have moments which I felt like I was meant to enjoy, because I'm not sure if I was meant to enjoy any of this film whatsoever. And so, all in all, although it's got its moments, and I'm not saying it's bad, it wasn't for me, because it was too gory, it was too dark, it was too scary, and it gave me a really uncomfortable viewing experience. And for that reason, I'm going to say Evil Dead Rise, I'm going to say it's a really disappointing movie. I'm also going to say that it's a 4 out of 10. Again, I can understand why a lot of people would like this film, and I'm not, I wouldn't dissuade anyone from going to watch it if you haven't seen it yet and you want to check it out. If you're into horror but you just haven't got around to watching it, guys, check it out. You don't have to have seen any of the other Evil Dead films as well in order to understand this one. I mean, if you have seen the Evil Dead films, there are moments in this one which you will recognise, and it might be a bit more of a fulfilling experience if you have seen the other Evil Dead films. But for me, I missed the campy spirit and the goofiness of Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness. And, hopefully we get that back. Maybe in the future Bruce Campbell crosses over with a new character we meet in this film. And if that happens, it's great. And by the way, I'm not saying that the characters in this film are bad, but I found it way too serious and way too real as well. It felt really realistic. And I didn't like that about it either. This could actually happen. But, I don't know. It wasn't for me, but I'm not a horror fan, so maybe that's why. And I was disappointed by it, but saying that, it's a proper horror movie, and it taps into all your fears, and if you want a proper horror movie, check this out. It just wasn't for me. That's all I'm saying. It wasn't for me, and I was disappointed by it, because it gave me a really uncomfortable viewing experience, like I've already said. And so, all in all, I'm going to say that's Evil Dead Rise. I'm going to say that it's a 4 out of 10 from me. Anyway, guys, thank you as always for watching now, because it's the end of the podcast, and hopefully you enjoyed this podcast today. Let me know what you thought of my reviews, and also let me know what you thought of the films that I reviewed in this podcast today. Maybe you loved something, maybe you hated the ones that I loved, maybe you loved Evil Dead Rise. If you did, that's great. Let me know in the comment section below. Maybe you loved Operation Fortune, Ruse the Guerre. Let me know in the comment section below as well. And maybe you hated Tetris. And if you did, let me know in the comment section below. And also, thank you as always for watching. And if you haven't yet, please do click down below and subscribe on this video if you're watching on YouTube. But also subscribe to the podcast if you are listening on Spotify. And I suppose that's it. So, yeah, thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.